What's happening, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. So today, guys, I put a little video together. A lot of people on Facebook and Instagram have been asking me, what's happening with your car? What have you been doing? Now, you're getting through the summer with it okay? Car's a Whipple car. It's got a killer chiller on it. The killer chiller really helps keep the intercooler fluid cold. My downstream air temperatures are really cold. And the car actually runs really good in the summertime now. I remember years past when I first put the Whipple on the car. During the summer, having a Whipple on the car was pretty much not even really worth it. When I had this car on E85, it ran great through the summer. Then I put the Whipple on it, it ran terrible. I almost wanted to take the Whipple off. But we put a killer chiller on it, and now through the summer, this car doesn't even know that it's summer. We drive it around and it runs great. If you've ever had your car, you built up your car and you took it out on a fall day, when the weather is nice and crisp and cool, the car runs great. Well, that's the way this car is now that I've got the chiller on it. Through the summer, when it's 90 plus degrees, this car runs like it's, October or even November. So it's been really good. And for today's video, we're going to talk a little bit more about this. So enough of this, guys. Let's get into the video. All right, everybody. So we're just going to take a quick look at this car. This is a 2018 Mustang GT, 401A car, 355 gear, 10R80. Now, you can see from the 20-inch wheels that this is not a performance pack car. So it has the standard brakes and the standard suspension. Nice premium car, it's got a leather interior and the heated and cooled seats and some of the bells and whistles. It doesn't have safe and smart and things like that, but it's loaded up fairly well. Now, you can see here, I've got the drag radials on the car. It helps a little bit on the street, really. I mean, the street tires offer absolutely no traction. The drag radials, well, not really much more. You got to drive on the street with at least 25-30 pounds in them of air pressure, and they grip a little bit better, but truthfully, they don't really grip all that great. The car has stock exhaust on it, so it's relatively quiet. That's kind of the way I like it. Stage 2 Whipple, right? We started out with a Stage 1 Whipple in 2018. It did not run good in the summertime here in Florida. We have temperatures above 90 degrees for about 5-6 months out of the year. The high temperatures here in Florida through the summer, really the way the car felt to me, it really was not worth it to have a Whipple on the car. Prior to the Whipple, I had it on E85 with a Lund tune. The car ran great, and I was disappointed with the Whipple. So what we did was we put a killer chiller on it. That was a way to get the engine to really think that it was in cooler climate, cooler weather. And it really worked, because immediately when I put the chiller on the car, it woke up. It was like night and day. The car felt really sluggish in the summer temperatures, but once the killer chiller was on it, this thing ran fantastic. So we've stepped it up since then. We stepped this car up to Stage 2, right? Still running through the stock exhaust, but we got a really aggressive tune in it. Now, the Stage 2 only makes about 10 pounds of boost. It doesn't make a lot of boost. But on pump gas, with a level of butane to a concentration of roughly 99 octane, we had my tuner, Tuning by James, tune this car very aggressively. There's a lot of timing in the tune. So this thing with the killer chiller is making some pretty good power. We had it at the track, and this was the run that we did at the track. This is our best run. So 1008 at 138.5 miles an hour roughly is pretty good. We had the car on the dyno with dynos roughly 800 to the rear wheels. That's quite a bit for a pump gas car with a Stage 2 Whipple. But basically, Stage 2 Whipple wouldn't make that much power because the killer chiller really helps this combination. Tuner was able to put more timing in it than he normally would. But on that run, we did a data log, and I want to show you something. Check this out.
If you look at the temperatures at the beginning of the run, you're 84 degrees downstream. This is IET2. You're 84 degrees. Now, it's like that because the supercharger isn't spinning. There's nothing really moving through it, so you're getting a lot of stagnant air sitting right there. As soon as you launch, you can see your temperatures come down to about 77 degrees,
Right.
which is, I mean, that's still pretty good, but with the small volume of the system, it's still being able to come up. By the end of the run, you're up to 87.8 degrees IAT2. Now, that's still phenomenal by any means, but what we were talking about before, getting that larger reservoir in there, you're definitely going to benefit, because this line isn't going to climb like this. It'll hold a lot steadier throughout the run.
Okay, so this pretty much shows that I really could use a reservoir tank.
Absolutely.
So that data log pretty much explains what our downstream air temperatures were like. Now, that's actually pretty cold. 85 degrees at the end of the track. We're starting to climb and get a little hot. There's a reason for that. We do not have the killer chiller hooked up completely on this car. This car, the killer chiller is on it and it's working great, but I don't have the holding tank in it yet because I simply haven't decided how I want to mount it. But I do have the holding tank, so let's go back to the house and I'm going to show you what the holding tank looks like. All right, everybody, so we'll just take a quick look at the motor here. You don't really see much anything unusual here. 3-liter Whipple, stage 2. You can see the 132 millimeter elliptical throttle body. We switched over to a closed air box to try to bring the IAT1s down. They're still relatively high, but that's about the best that we could do there. Here there is not really much indication of a killer chiller. The only thing that you see is this plumbing right here. This is where we plumbed in the drag valve, which is this little guy right down below. I don't know if you can really get a good look at it, but you could see it down in here. That's the drag valve. So what that does is it enables the user of the car, you know, if you're gonna drag race the car, you gotta shut off the cabin AC, because if that's left on, you know, you'll be dripping condensate on the track, and you really don't want to do that, because track officials don't like that, and then you'll get into your own condensate and you'll slip and you won't have good times. So you can shut your cabin AC off, but the compressor stays on to kill the chiller, or to chill the chiller, the intercooler fluid. And you can see I just had it on. You see all of that condensate on there? You know, we're humid here in Florida, and you know, the humidity condensates on the cold surfaces. You can see it right over here. There's condensate all over this spot because it's actually pretty hot out today, and you know, we also got some humidity, so you see that condensation. Now this combination of parts here, you know, we eliminated the heat exchanger. If you look in there, you can see there's no heat exchanger in this car. You know, this looks like any other car from the front. You don't really see anything that gives you any indication of what's in the car, right? If you look down in here, you'll see a little bit of the plumbing for the killer chiller. Killer chiller is just kind of sitting in there, tucked away, added away. Now, this killer chiller works very good, guys. Like I say, we have downstream air temperatures in this combination. While we were at the drag strip, you know, we were at the highest at 85 degrees down the end of the run, which was getting a little high, and that's because we don't have the holding tank on this car. But we got the holding tank. I'm going to show it to you, but before we do that, I want to start this car, and I want to show you how the killer chiller works from the cabin, because it can get a little tricky with how to work this thing. So let me take you inside, and well, we'll start the car, then I'll take you inside and I'll show you how that works. All right, everybody, so with the car running here for roughly about 2 minutes, the killer chiller has had a chance to cool the intercooler fluid, and I kind of want to show you what that is. I mean, there's really no way to check it. I don't have a temperature gauge in any of the lines or anything like that. The only way that I can test this is to throw an infrared on it and see what the temperature is on top of the blower. Just want to show you how hot it is here today, guys. This little temperature thing is showing 104 degrees. Don't really think it's that hot, but it's pretty hot here today. Let's take a look at this. See that? Showing 46 degrees, 47 degrees here on top of the blower. This is really the only spot right here where we could get any kind of a reading on what the interfluid temperature would be, the intercooler fluid. This is actually the exit where the intercooler fluid flows back to the pump and then flows back to to the killer chiller, but this is the only point. You can see the condensation on top of the blower. We've seen on really humid days that there's a lot of condensation on top of the blower right here, but that's not really the case today. One of the questions that people have asked me about the killer chiller is, how does the cabin AC work, right? Does it still work as good as it used to? Yeah, I mean, I've had this on here for about a year already, and I can tell you that the cabin temperatures work pretty good. Let's look. See that, guys? 40 degrees, 43 degrees, 48 degrees. I don't know if that's visible, but that's as good as it gets. It doesn't really, you know, every once in a while you get a little false reading, but it runs at about 30 to 40 degrees on the vent temperatures. Now I want to show you something here too, guys, how this killer chiller works. You see that light? That's a switch. The switch, when glowing blue like that, tells you that the cabin AC is on. Okay, so when you get to the track and you want to turn the cabin AC off, you hit that switch and it turns the cabin AC off, right? Which is good, because you don't want the track officials don't want you to have the AC on because you're dropping condensate on the track. That's not good for anybody. One thing that you have to remember to do when you have a killer chiller like the setup that I have, there's no heat exchanger, right? So you have to leave the controls for the AC here on the panel on, because that's still controlling the AC compressor, right? So you hit that switch down there to shut the cabin AC off. That's where that control is. But these controls are controlling the compressor. So these have to stay on so that the compressor is still cooling. You know, it's still engaged and working, and the killer chiller is still working. The drag valve is controlled by that switch, right? So when you hit that switch, it hits the drag valve, and it shuts the cabin AC off. And that's how this thing works. You know, a lot of people have asked me, how does that work for you, not having a heat exchanger? Well, it works for me because I don't have any reason to ever shut the AC off where I live here in Florida. My AC is always on. I never turn it off. So when I go to the track, I hit that one switch and turns the cabin AC off, and it works great. Let's take another reading. $49 degrees on a 100-degree day. That's how well this killer chiller works, guys. Okay, so it's a really hot day here in Florida. Here in mid-September, it's still hot. It's still like summertime. We don't see temperatures cooling down until we get into October, maybe into the second week in October. That's when things start to get good. But for now, you know, or really permanently, we rely on the killer chiller. The thing is, the way I have this killer chiller hooked up, I don't have the holding tank in it. I have the holding tank and I want to show it to you. So let me turn the camera around. Let me show you what that looks like. Here it is. Here's the holding tank. I've actually had this thing for a while, and I just haven't hooked it up. You know, the car sitting out there, we had a problem with the rear end in that car, and we haven't had it to the track since we have the new rear end of the car. So I actually want to go down to the 8th mile and track test it before I make any other changes to make sure everything is okay. At the time, before the rear started to give me trouble, the transmission was shifting, you know, first to second and then quickly into third. We suspected it was the rear, but we're not really sure. So I don't want to make any changes until I track test the car and make sure that everything's okay with the transmission. If there is something wrong with the transmission, you know, we can have it freshened up by somebody before we get into the racing season. If there's nothing wrong with it, that'd be great, because I really don't want to have to deal with that. But here's the holding tank, right? And what this does is it increases the volume of the system. It'll take the chiller a little bit longer to cool the intercooler fluid, because this is a gallon capacity. This is 4 inches in diameter and about a foot long, holds about a gallon of fluid. It mounts behind the front bumper, okay, putting a little bit more weight in the front of the car, which is something I really don't want to do. That was the main reason why I had not hooked this up yet. But you could see from my data logs that downstream air temps were picking up at the end of the track, and that was basically because this tank is not installed. So we're going to get this installed at some point. We're going to track test the car, and then we'll find a convenient place to put this and have this thing hooked up. Okay, so there's the holding tank, guys. That's what that's all about. All right, so that's a brief synopsis of what it's like to have a killer chiller on your car hooked up basically the way mine is. I don't have the holding tank. It isn't quite right. It's still very effective on the street, because basically when you're driving it on the street, you're not into the throttle like you're at the, like you do with the racetrack. So on the street, there's plenty of volume to just do what you want to do and keep your intercooler fluid ice cold, like you had a permanent ice tank in the car. I mean, think about it that way. Guys at the track with really high-powered cars, blowers and things like that, they have ice tanks in their cars. So what's that all about? Well, they're trying to achieve the same thing. The problem is you need ice to do that. With a killer chiller, you don't. Okay, the killer chiller basically cools the fluid on its own. You just let the car run for a minute, 2-3 minutes. Your intercooler fluid is ice cold. With the holding tank, you have the volume that you need, and you could shoot down the quarter mile with very cold IAT2, post blower temperatures because the killer chiller is in the car. I like it. I thought it was really the best modification that I could make to this car. Because I live in Florida, and the blower just simply didn't give me what it was capable of giving me. The only time it ran good was on cool days. If the temperature dropped below 80 degrees, the car started to run good. Well, right now with the killer chiller, with my intercooler fluid getting as cold as 40 degrees, it behaves like it's a 30-degree day. It makes a lot of power because of that. Plus the tuning that I got from my tuner, with the Boostain and all the things that we did, we make a lot of power with this car on 93 octane. Granted, I'm using the Boostain, but Boostain is available and it's easy to get, and I can travel with it. I could run the car on 93 octane if I want. I don't have to put the Boostain in it. It won't make the power because the knock sensors will pull timing. It's been set up that way, just like any other tune. But the car runs great, and what I want to do is just go for a little ride with it right now. So come with me, let's go for a ride. All right, everybody, so the first thing you'll notice about this car is that it's still quiet, very quiet. In fact, I didn't do anything to change the exhaust on this car. We're still with the stock exhaust on this car. A lot of people have asked me, why didn't I go to long tubes? I could have gone to long tubes, but the truth of the matter is I didn't need them. This car's making power without it. And I like the fact that it's still quiet, even when you give it a stab. Man, I just broke traction at 50 miles an hour doing that, about half throttle. But, the point is, though, with this car is that the killer chiller completely changed the car. When I had it on stage 1, it was good. Prior to that, like I say, I had the 85 in the car and the 85 tune. Lund tuned the car, and it was great. That summer, I had a blast with this car in 85. When I had the blower put on it, the first summer that I had it, I didn't think it ran that great. I was very, very disappointed, and I was ready to just take the blower off and go back to 85 and call it a day. But I talked to a friend of mine, and he mentioned to me, why don't you put a killer chiller on it? That would change everything. So I did that, and the killer chiller is on the car. Now, when it was on, the interesting thing was that we dynoed this car with the stage 1 on it without the chiller, and then we dynoed it with the chiller on it, and there was a 50 horsepower difference just from having the chiller on the car. So there was a huge advantage there. Then we stepped it up to stage 2 and did a little bit more tuning, and tuned it with Boostain and threw a lot of timing at it. My friend James from Tuning by James gave me a phenomenal tune with this car. This car behaves more like a Whipple stage 2 car on the 85. Not making quite as much power as in the 85 car would make, but close. So I'm at the point with this car that do I cross that line? Do I go to the 85? It's a question that I ask myself. Do I want to invest in the fuel system? Do I actually want to take it that far? I don't know. I think what I want to do is race this car the way it is, and see how it is. But it's pretty nasty. This thing is all over the road, and I got the drag radials on it. A little bit better, a little bit more traction than you would normally get when you have the street tires on it. The street tires are an absolute joke, but I enjoy it. With the killer chiller on the car, this car has no idea that we're in 90 plus degree temperatures. I drive it around all summer like this. If you guys remember correctly, the rear blew in this car. When we did our 1008 pass, the clutches in the rear were slipping. This car is capable of going a lot faster than 1008. We got a new rear in the car, Here it is. I'll show it to you right here. This is a really nice rear. Performance pack, PP1 rear from an automatic 10-speed car. You know, it's a nice rear. And that's the rear that we have in the car now. I'm just going to let the traffic pass because I want to goose it a little bit. All right, check this out. Whoa! You know, you can never get used to that. This thing is insane. It's insane. You know, there's a lot of cars that are more powerful than this one at this point in time. There's a lot of cars out there that are more powerful than this. I drive this car around. You can see it's nice and quiet. It's really not that loud, but this thing really rips, and I enjoy it. There's a lot more in it, and that's the point here, is that I've only scratched the surface with what this car is capable of doing. It, you know, with the pump gas, you can only go so far, you know, with additives. I managed to get this thing close to 800 to the rear wheels. That's actually pretty good, all things considered. I don't know what's the matter with this thing. All right, so my camera's not working anymore, guys. I'll just hold it right here. 800 horsepower is actually pretty good, but there's more. But anyway, guys, you know, I just want to goose it a little bit to show you this, how this thing actually. It's pretty bad. You can see I really can't get in it the way I want to. This car is just ripping the pavement, and this thing is pretty nasty the way I got it built. You know, I could take it a little bit further, but we're gonna see. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. You know, we got some E85 that's been brought to my area, just a couple of miles from the house. I can gas up. I can shoot up to Bradenton and drag race up there with the 85. They got the 85 up there by the track, so I can gas up and get back. We also race at a Mockley down south of us, so I just got to figure out what they got down there. If they got some E85 anywhere close down there, maybe we'll step this car up to 85. Like I say, we're gonna race it the way it is right now. See what we can do. Like I say, we did 1008 at 138 plus miles an hour. I know that we can get into the 9s. We did that 1008 with the bad rear in the car. So now we got a good rear in the car. We just got to get back to the track and you know, get back into the swing of things. When the weather cools down in another few weeks, that's where you'll find me, down at the track. So so that's about it for today, guys. We're gonna sign off. If you like this video, hit that subscribe button, and we will see you in the next one. So guys, I want to show you something. I was just vlogging this car, right? Talking about the killer chiller and stuff like that. As I was walking around the car, I stepped up on the grass over here. Look at what I almost stepped in. I want to show you something. Okay guys, do you see this? Okay, there's the car. I was just walking along this grass and I nearly stepped in this. This is a colony of fire ants. Okay, these are very aggressive ants, not native to this area. They came here from somewhere else, and they are excuse me, very aggressive. Okay, so if you step on that, those ants are going to come out and they're on the attack, and when they bite you, they've got a venom in them that is really very, very toxic. If you get bit by a mosquito, you think that's bad. When these things bite you, it's 1,000 times worse. Let me show you something. Just touch on the mound. Look at them come out. Can you guys see that? They're on the attack. They're looking to get you. If you step on that thing, those ants by this time would be hundreds of them on your legs, biting you and stinging you and injecting that venom into you. Usually by the time you feel it, it's too late. These things are deadly. Man, if you ever see a mound like that, stay away from it, because you'll be really sorry if you step on that.